New format woes. Fans around the world are left disappointing, and Sergio Perez remains king of the streets. This is Into the Chicane, a Formula One podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Channing Apodaca, joined as always by my man Brandon Wood, the new father. How you doing, bud?
A little tired, but we're here, excited.
That's good. Congratulations to you and the missus, Miss Susie Wolf Stan account.
Oh yeah, thank you. We're
How are you enjoying fatherhood so far? Is it everything it's chalked up to be?
absolutely. It's a blessing. I've been granted a lot of extra time to watch some racing, a little extra practice time. So can't be
complaining too much.
I can't be complaining too much.
That's good. For those of you guys listening, we're doing this for the first time remotely. Brandon, as we just said, he's spending time with the baby, so we're doing this in two different locations. Even though we're in the same city, we're doing this apart. So any technical difficulties, suck it. We don't care. Let's get into this, like I was calling it earlier before we got started, this black cloud that people are calling the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
Is it really a black cloud? Is it really as dramatic as everyone's making it out to be?
I would say I think so. And the reason I say that is because with everything that they put into this weekend, like this whole dropping a bombshell that they were calling the shootout weekend, this new sprint format, the sprint shootout.
Yeah, well,
I think that this was supposed to be this new bright star, and it could not have been more lackluster.
I maybe disagree. The feature race could have been better, but it's as to be expected from the current set of cars and competition, and I was kind of actually really looking forward to the change in the format. I thought just one practice session was gonna maybe shake things up a little bit.
I was excited about it. We had, 4 sessions total or 5 sessions total? We had FP1, qualies, sprint shootout, the sprint race, and then the Grand Prix. So five different sessions, and only one of them was a practice. That sounds like a good deal to me.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that the 4 that mattered most, everything outside of FP1, were boring as hell.
Yeah. Well, the fact that the qualifying for Sunday was on Friday made it a little more interesting on Friday watching. There's a lot more at stake than just setup for the next day.
It was pretty weird. There's a lot more at stake on a Friday, and then in the following 2 days, certain teams and drivers could give a shit about what was happening, and then all of a sudden the stakes are re-raised on Sunday. I think for the bottom half of the field, Williams. Oh, I wouldn't actually say Williams, but maybe like the Haas's, Alfa Tauri, Alfa Romeo, and who else could we throw in there? Who's at the back? I guess Logan Sargent and the Williams. For them, it didn't matter. The whole shootout didn't matter. You have to make top 8 in order for anything to count. All you're doing is burning engines, burning gearboxes. So that's weird.
I can see that.
I think that
maybe a better fix would be to give points further down, but then it's like, how many points are you giving out for a short sprint race?
Yeah, what would be an interesting thing is to have a smaller grid. If you don't qualify for a certain, maybe they only have the top 15 actually take part in the sprint if you don't qualify within a certain time.
I've seen suggestions like doing a reverse grid order for the sprint.
Yeah, I don't like that. I've heard reverse grid order a lot. I don't think this is a constructors series. It's best of the best. I don't think punishing teams for doing well in a qualifying session is the right way to go. Even though, it would make it fun, and they would have to drop it as a surprise. Like, you never know which weekend it's going to happen,
Yeah.
That's the only way. Otherwise, you would have teams completely... If you knew going into a quali session that it was going to be reverse grid order, obviously you're not going to go and put in your best times.
Yeah, well, yeah.
If that's the way that they're planning on doing it, I'd be interested in seeing that. So, I don't think that's the right way to go about it, though.
Well, if they did it where it's like, Friday you set your qualifying time for Sunday, but that's the qualifying time that they do the reverse order on. So, the people would still be incentivized to get a good qualifying time because they want to have that on Sunday. But gives opportunity for the guys at the back of the grid on Saturday to possibly,
Oh, you
get in
mean
that
doing
good
the
grid
sprint
position.
race
Yeah.
as a reverse grid order?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I never saw it that way.
Yeah.
So like they do the quali and then they do a sprint race in reverse order.
Yeah.
And then I always took it as you qualify and then they just flip the script and whoever finishes 20th is now starting on pole and vice versa, but that would be the way that the Grand Prix works. And I always was like, how would that work? Period. You would literally have to surprise teams, surprise after qualities being like, this is now a reverse grid weekend.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm dumb. I never put two and two together.
But then
on
it's
that
like
one.
if it's a short sprint race, how much time do you have to make up positions if you're further back on the grid and all that kind of stuff? So it gets tough, but
yeah,
it would be interesting to see.
Still, at the same time, you're awarding mediocrity because if it's a 17 lap race like this one was, there's a good chance that those top 10 who really don't deserve to be there are gonna get points. And if you're gonna get points, that means you're gonna get a hefty paycheck at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So awarding teams that money for shitting their pants all season, or at least in this one qualifying session, probably isn't the way that the FIA wants to go about it. They don't want to give away money to. They don't want to give money to Haas. Is what the FIA doesn't want to do.
I mean,
they really don't.
In like close title contentions, I can see where it's a good opportunity for maybe somebody to make up points in a weekend when they wouldn't normally be able to. And like you could see somebody maybe losing out, like we saw in the F2 series, like Iwasa totally didn't even finish the sprint race. And there was 8 points that he lost right there and lost him the points lead. So before the weekend
you were
was
telling me
even
about
over,
that. I didn't get the chance to watch the F2 race.
Yeah, so it's like there can be complications for not doing well in the sprint. It's not like it's complete waste of time like some people thought it was. Some of the drivers especially. But I thought it was interesting. We got to see the great moment of Russell giving Max damage going into turn 2, and then
I'll say as much
altercation
as
afterwards.
I really hated this race, there were small moments in each part of the weekend, and that soundbite I think is going to live on forever in F1.
It was so good.
Well, then you can expect the same.
Yeah, even though like with what Max said, it's like, well, he shouldn't really be one to complain. But at the same time, it's like, of course, if someone makes a move on you like that,
yeah,
go.
I mean,
tell
that
him
was a near perfect move from George. I don't want to hate on him for going for the move and for trying to make it, but if you're going to make contact and you're going to put a watermelon-sized hole in the side of somebody's car, then you have to own up to the repercussions of that. And the way that he just scoffed and walked Max off, is just it's proving everything that we've had to say about him this year.
Yeah, he had no grip. So
nobody else had grip. Nobody else had grip going into that turn, but you're the only one that made contact, George, and that's now your reputation. I'm not letting it go. Until he goes half a season or a whole season without touching somebody into one of the first turns, I'm gonna hold on to it.
Yeah, it was just.
I think Max had every right to be a Max hole in that situation.
Even though you can say, Max, all right, you need to calm down because you've done the same thing. It was still funny to see them go at each other, and I applaud it, and I want more of it.
Oh, 100%.
Please, I want 100%. Everyone all the way down the grid. All these little. I want to see rivalries all the way down. I want to see people bumping elbows. I'm
actually surprised that Max. I'm surprised that Max remained as calm as he did because we've seen him lose his shit in Parc Fermé before. If you go back to what was like 2017 when he pushed Esteban Ocon off the scale.
Yeah.
He'll lose his shit on you. He'll fight you. Max is a dog. We all know that. But I thought he played it pretty cool. But yeah, I thought overall from FP1 all the way down to the Grand Prix, I think it was boring. And I think that's the general sentiment from F1 Twitter, the F1 geosphere, is that this is one to forget. I say a lot of times on this show, this race will go down as, and I think this race will go down as just one to forget.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think we could be applauding Checo for the great drive that he put in, and
I'm not going to take away from
and
the good things that people did, like especially Checo. I guess we might as well talk about it right now. Checo put up a great. Normally we call him the Mexican Minister of Defense. He put up a great offensive effort in this race. Max got a little bit unlucky with the safety car coming, and I thought that was a uncharacteristic bad call from the Red Bull team because there was yellow flags in sectors 1 and 2. We had a similar conversation about George Russell and his bad pit in Australia. Anytime there's a yellow flag in a sector, do not pit. Wait.
Yeah.
Don't pull your driver in because that yellow flag can turn into a full safety car, and then you've just mucked your entire race. And that's kind of what happened to Max.
And I think this is part of why I thought this weekend was pretty interesting, actually, because we got to see Max, another weekend where Max is kind of like caught out a little bit, and he's not winning, and you kind of see what happens and how his personality changes when he's not winning. Not everything's going the way he wants to.
He's calmed down a little bit.
I don't know.
Calmed down quite a bit.
I mean, part of the reason he was already struggling with his tires a little bit before they made that call. Mm-hmm. So he was I think he was stressing. He knew he needed to get. I think at that point he was still behind Charles.
When he got hit,
or when the safety car happened.
Oh, you're talking about yeah. No, he had passed Charles on lap 4. Him and Checo were clear of them.
Yeah. So, but
it was on lap 12 or 14 that I think that safety car came out.
Yeah, that's right.
And then Checo took the lead, and he held on to it. He created, once the race got going again, he really distanced himself, and he kept at one point a 2+ second lead on Max. Max had no pace to keep up with Checo. I don't know if it's just Checo in the streets or if Checo is really putting his foot down and driving for himself this season, but I'm fucking here for it.
Yeah, no.
I think the rest of the world is too. I think everybody's on Team Checo right now, and it's not to take away from Max. Everybody knows I love Max.
Yeah.
But just, I love a good underdog story. That's how I became a Max fan, was when he was fighting against Lewis, and now he's got an underdog to deal with on his own. So that's a good little thing to come out of this race. Let's go back to break down a little bit more of the sprint race. So we talked about we talked about Russell and Max's damage. Safety car took up a couple laps there.
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer. For such a short race, you hate to see like 5-6 laps get eaten up.
Yeah, at that point, red flag it. I think anything over 3 laps, red flag it.
For the short race, it's tough.
You got to save racing. That turned into an 11-lap race. That could be potentially why it started off on such a bad foot. The whole weekend itself, except for Nick de Vries, he started out embarrassingly bad on Friday. Did he crash on Friday, or did he crash in the shootout?
Yeah. He's caused I don't know, practice. I think. Yeah. It was in qualifying that he was having problems with his brakes. Ended up going into the wall as well. Caused a red flag during the qualifying. So he just was having problems all weekend.
Let's talk about him for a second. We are 4 races into this season, and I think Nick de Vries has bought himself a one-way ticket back to Formula E.
I don't know.
What do you think?
I don't think so.
Is it too soon to call?
I think so. I think they're having a lot of issues with the car.
But he doesn't look good.
Yeah, he's been struggling, no doubt. Yuki's definitely been putting in some great performances that don't make Nick's look as great. So it's hard to judge when you're looking at them, both of them together, but they're also, they've been having problems with the car a lot, and you could see throughout the weekend that it was something with his brakes. During the race, that was his fault. He clipped the wall, and broke his suspension, his wheel, and that was it.
It is such a fall from grace for what we saw from him last season, when everybody, we were all singing his praises because he drove, was it the Williams, the Aston Martin, and the Alfa Tauri?
Yeah. I don't know if
he drive all three of them?
Did he drive the AlphaTauri car last year? Maybe in the...
I could be wrong on that.
I don't know.
I could be wrong on that. It might have just been the Williams and the Aston Martin.
Mercedes. It was
Either
a Mercedes.
Way, did he drive a Mercedes in this, like in a practice session or something?
Yeah,
and then
he was
drove
like the reserve
in the
for
race.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but either way, he drove 3 cars last season, and he did phenomenal in every session, given the equipment provided. And everybody, we were all singing his praises last year and going into the season, and now, man, he just hasn't looked good at all.
I mean, I feel like he's going to have at least another season to be able to...
This is Red Bull we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean...
They switch drivers more than anybody. That's literally what they're known for, is swapping seats, especially on that second team.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. This is the 4th round.
Yeah, it's early. It's early, but
we're early. I think if he actually gets a couple good drives in, at some point this season, we'll be good. So
hopefully he'll be able to turn it around. More in the sprint. Checo takes the lead from Charles on lap 8, which was a nice little preview for what was to come in the race. So good on Checo. He wins the sprint. He wins the Grand Prix. He really is claimed Baku as his own.
He was, this race was set up for him to win. If he didn't win, then we would be worried, But he did everything he was supposed to do. Chalk another one up for some Red Bull dominance, but
this is really exciting that he put himself 6 points away from Max? My math right?
I haven't
check
looked.
The standings real quick. Standings, drivers. 6 points away from Max. Max has 93. Checo has 87.
Let's go.
And we're heading into Miami, which is another street track.
Let's go.
Max won it last year, right? If Checo can show up and get a great performance in Miami, all he has to do is win the race, because it's a 7-point difference, and that would at least tie him if Max got second and fastest lap. If Checo wins the race and gets fastest lap, that puts him in the lead for the World Championship. And I think even if it's just for a split second, fans want to see that.
Yeah. I mean, to see anybody, battle Max, people are going to be excited. Sergio's...
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think anytime you just have a juggernaut of the sport, in any fashion, you want to see somebody go up and challenge them.
But and what greater drive?
And when it's a good guy like Checo,
exactly. We love to see it. We're all here for it.
And again, like I said earlier, it's not to take away anything from Max. Still love Max. If Max has another great season and wins his 3rd championship, fuck yeah, that's awesome. You want to see a young phenom continue to do well. So in the Grand Prix race, started off as we predicted. Max overtakes Charles on lap 4. Yeah, it was Chuck starting from Max and Checo behind. It didn't take either of them too long. It took Checo a couple laps longer. I think, what was it? Max overtook him on 4. I think 2 laps later, Checo overtook Charles. And if you go back and watch Checo's overtake on Charles, it was a lot more aggressive than Max's. I don't know if you caught it, but Max was like a clean, easy. He had the slipstream. As soon as that DRS opens up, that Red Bull just powers right through him. Chuck didn't even really put up a fight.
In the same spot?
Checo passes him. I don't know if it was in the same spot. I couldn't tell you. I want to say it might have been on the same straightaway, but I know for a fact it was. If it was on the same straightaway, it was a lot deeper.
The turn one,
closer to the turn, because Checo backs him off. He gives him he makes Chuck flinch towards the wall, and it was, I thought, just like this great offensive maneuver to not only pass him, but to put that little bit of defense into the pass and back him off while he's passing.
Yeah, make sure he's not going to...
Because that's going to slow Chuck down even
make
more.
sure he's not going to make a move right back. Because especially if he's doing it in turn 1, right after turn 2, you have the next DRS zone. So if Charles is right there with, you can just pass him right back. So
exactly. Yeah. So it was a brilliant move right there. And then shortly after that, we have, was it lap 11? That's when Nick Vries decided to touch the wall again. Did you notice how many people were nicking the wall all weekend with their back rear tires?
I know Max hit it a couple times. Checo hit it.
Max did it. Checo did it. De Vries and Yuki both did it. Lance Stroll did it.
Yeah, it was wild.
I was watching and I was like, there's debris all over this track. And then it took me a second to realize it's poster board. It's banners because they're all scraping paint and fucking banners off of the walls. It was Aramco sponsorships everywhere and Coca-Cola.
Did you see, I think it was in,
Mucinex.
was it in the, it was in the sprint when Yuki hit the wall and his tire blew off?
Yeah, and the tire went solo.
Did you notice, like, how it's been like almost every race now, there's been a tire that's blown off the rim?
I did not notice that.
Yeah, it's like not good. Tires shouldn't be
I
just
didn't
blowing
notice
off
that.
the rims.
That was we should talk about that a little bit too. I don't know if they ended up getting a penalty for that, but AlphaTauri got issued investigation because of an unsafe release. That car was jacked the fuck up. All that hanging off that it was doing really messed with its axle because he went back out there and had absolutely no traction coming from it. It was completely lopsided. Did you see AlphaTauri get the investigation?
In the race?
I think it was in the sprint when he lost his tire.
No, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, they got put under investigation for an unsafe release because when they released that car back out, it was completely lopsided. They put the tire back on with the new wheel, but it was like the axle had completely
the suspension
bent out of
was
shape.
broken.
So the car was... Yeah, it was all... Was that what it was? Suspension?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got in trouble for putting that car back on track when it was clearly not safe to do so. So there was that. We had everybody touching the wall. We got a great show of teamwork from the Aston Martin team in qualies, too. Did you notice Fernando giving Lance a little toe there?
Yeah, I mean, through the whole weekend, they were really, like, together in arms. It was great to see, you know? It's not often.
It was nice to see that you see Fernando playing the teammate role and not making everything about him. Yeah, that's not often. Part of me, I almost don't believe it.
It's kind of weird, right? It's funny.
Part of me feels it almost feels like it's still a troll, or like, you know, he had given Lance that advice about you know, how to do his brake setting or whatever. And then it didn't work out for Lance. It almost seems like he's putting on this voice, you know, tell Lance to try my suggestion out. It almost sounds like he's fucking with him just so that in a lap or two he can switch his differential back to the way he wants it and slow him down.
Yeah, I don't know. Because before that we had Lance going, tell Fernando I will not attack him. Tell him I will not Fernando.
Yeah.
And then Fernando's like, I mean, he can go for it. I'm not stopping him.
It really interesting, like, just team dynamic there. I don't really know what to make of it other than, like, it makes me laugh watching it go back and forth because, like I said, it doesn't feel real to me. It feels like Fernando's got something up his sleeve when he does moves like that.
Some kind of ulterior motive.
You know, it has an ulterior motive. He's got too much Taylor Swift in his ear, dude. That's what it is.
Maybe he's just flying high.
You heard that rumor, yeah?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. You know, him getting questions about it and stuff was kind of like annoying. It's like, all right, well, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys are going to ask the questions about it when it's, you know, we all know the reality about the situation, but.
Yeah. There was some, actually, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, like, I think, because we talked about this before, we more kind of figure that it probably has to do with the amount of money that he's getting this year, and
sure, and probably what he's going to make next year.
Yeah, Lawrence has been very generous with his bonuses, I think, since Fernando's been getting on the podium. You know,
I don't doubt it. I mean, and Fernando deserves it. He deserves every bit of, you know, good things that can come his way from the performance that he's put in. They had a little bit of a rough weekend because, you know, starting with FP1. They had DRS issues, which I don't even know if they were able to fix by the race on Sunday.
Yeah, it looked like it was fixed come race time, but that definitely set them back. They could have qualified better.
Yeah, they
weren't dealing with that.
They looked slower than the Mercedes, at least this weekend, and the Ferraris. At least the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who, man, I think that dude might be just the greatest qualifier in F1 history. Or he's at least tossing his name in the ring, you know. Over one lap, that guy seems unbeatable, but his racecraft needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, and they're struggling with tire life in their car, so
Yeah, they're getting a lot of
they can
deg.
keep a great pace, but they can't keep it for a long time. So they're limited in what they can accomplish.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I gotta retract my statement. Fernando finished P4. I forgot about that. All weekend before that, though, I think Lewis was beating him. Everything aside, I've said that this race was pretty boring. There was some decent overtakes, like Lewis overtook George. That was nice to see.
It was great.
I love a good George overtaking Lewis. Fernando put a great move on Carlos Sainz. I think it was turn 5. Snuck that right up the middle. Pierre Gasly put a nice move on one of the Alfa Tauris. But for whatever reason, even with those like exciting little overtakes, something about this whole weekend was just fucking boring. Like even watching the race, it was boring. Like, oh, look at Pierre's going for it. I don't know if it was the broadcast crew being just a second late to every bit of action, or if there really was like a black cloud over.
Well,
over
I mean, this track is tough because the cars with the straight line speed were the ones that had the advantage. The cars with the good DRS, and there's mainly 2 spots to pass, maybe a third. In between turns 5 and 6, you saw a couple passes through that little like short section, but other than that, there's not a whole lot of opportunities. So you kind of like
you really got to make your move when you get the opportunity, and you gotta make it stick.
Yeah, and once you do make your move, you gotta make a little gap so you don't have the guy behind you just staying right on you so they can get DRS at the next straight. So it's tough.
You know what? I think a little bit of it is that this was just a little bit of Baku in its most true form. The last few years we've had so much great drama at Baku that was kind of happenstance, like Hamilton and the magic button, some other off-track battles. Max's tire blowing, Lance Stroll's tire blowing, all that shit that happened in Baku previously, and now we're kind of nothing extraordinary happened in this race, and it was just kind of like, oh, that's Baku. I did hear somebody suggest putting Baku as a night race and doing it under the lights. Do you think that would up the excitement level for it?
That might be cool.
I think that would look absolutely sick.
Yeah. There's also a study probably you could do on whether or not the sprint race had any effect on that, and some of the action kind of playing out.
I wonder if they're
on both
going to
days,
bring
so
this shootout back.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll bring this shootout format back, or do you think that this test was enough for them to see?
I liked this format for sprint in general. I think it's a better version of a sprint race, but then you can have a different conversation as to whether or not sprint races are good or not. But
yeah, I don't know how I feel about the shootout. I think this was a bad track to get our first taste of it. I wonder if they're going to do the shootout in Coda this year, because they're doing Coda and they're doing Interlagos, I think, as sprint races, right? I wonder if they're going to do the shootout at either of those 2 tracks, because those are infinitely better for racing and for exciting racing, overtaking. So I would be interested to see how the shootout format works there. But at the same time, those are 2, at least Coda is a bigger track, so you're going to have less traffic in the shootout, and the shootout kind of favors a traffic-heavy, session for excitement, at least. That's kind of what they were hoping, was that, by shortening the amount of time that cars are allowed to be on track, that it's going to cause all this traffic, and it kind of doesn't. It just was like, all right.
No, it just, if anything, it probably spread the field out, because some teams got, like Alpine, for instance, got caught out with just having the wrong setup, so they didn't really have the opportunity to adjust.
I think they were expecting a lot more people to get caught out in the shootout too, and the only one that ended up on the wrong side of it was Yuki. That was really it. Other than that, everybody kind of came out.
You could say Max did, but not by much.
Was he not able to get a session in? He just had a bad lap. He put in 2 yellows, I think, on his final lap. But maybe that was because he was rushed for time. Who knows? Let's see. Other than that, I want to talk about. We've had a lot of talk this season about certain teams and drivers showing up and those who haven't. One person that isn't getting enough shit, and I saw it this last race. Where the fuck has Valtteri Bottas been? That guy is phoning it in so unbelievably hard. He has been absolutely nowhere. Go watch Pierre pass him on the straightaway over the finish line. He could not have given a shit. I think he finished dead last in this race. Yep. De Vries didn't finish. His teammate Zhou didn't finish. Valtteri Bottas was lapped. Valtteri Bottas was almost lapped by Logan Sargent. A handful of more laps and that might have happened.
I feel like he's starting to check out a little bit, and I think the situation with that team is not helping.
I think he got word that he's not going to make it to Audi, and he doesn't see himself in a seat. So he just cut his hair into a nice curly mullet, threw on a tank top and some flops, and is just cashing checks and traveling.
Enjoying it while it lasts.
And good on him. It's just you never want to see somebody, especially somebody as beloved as Valtteri Bottas, I think, struggle in such a meek way. You don't want to see somebody sandbag it to the end of their career. But also, I don't drive a fucking Formula One car, so what can I say? All I did was take note of the fact that he's been completely MIA this entire season. You know, they got off to a good start. I think in the first race, maybe the first two rounds even. A complete 180 from what we saw from McLaren, because McLaren got off to a dog shit start. They got off to and the Alfa Romeo team got off to a good start, and now they've completely flipped. Not to say that McLaren is back by any standard, but they look better. They look at about where the Alfa Romeos we thought were going to be. And the Alfa Romeos, goddamn. God bless Zhou Guanyu for his efforts, but they look horrid.
Yeah, I think that team's just struggling, and they don't have the resources to, get it back to where it needs to be. And Valtteri, his vibes were really high in Australia, and I think that was, if anywhere he was going to show that, this season they're going to be battling in midfield. That it just
they also know that they have there's a light at the end of the tunnel for them. They have better things on the horizon as soon as Audi shows up.
Yeah.
So we'll hope to see a little bit better from Valtteri Bottas and his what's probably going to be his final season, if not one of his last seasons. But anyways, we finished the race with another Red Bull 1-2. This time, Checo leading Max ahead of Leclerc. Ferrari getting their very first podium of the season, and good for them. That was a hard-earned one, I think, for Chuck.
Yeah, he did what he had to do. He had to be out there with no toe. He's just by himself pretty much the whole time. He wasn't able to catch a DRS train or anything, and he went out there, didn't make any mistakes, just rode a good race, and that's him in that on the podium is what he deserves. Yeah.
We also found out going into the weekend that Baku had signed a new contract through 2026?
Correct.
I think that was. Hopefully they can put together a better package, because, like I've said all day, that was a fucking boring race. The most exciting portion of that race was almost a goddamn massacre.
I mean...
You know what I'm talking about?
No. What?
Esteban Ocon pit lane, last lap of the race.
Yeah. That was a mess.
That was the most exciting portion of the race for me, for the announcers, for everybody. It also pissed me the fuck off. I don't know how you felt about it, but that is absolutely ridiculous. For those of you who didn't see it, I don't know what you were watching, but you completely missed out. I was talking to Cole Dickey, former guest on the show, and he somehow missed out on it. I think he said he dozed back off because we have to watch at 4 a.m. here. He dozed off on the last lap of the race knowing that nothing was going to change, and he missed it. But it's Esteban Ocon, very last lap of the race. He hadn't pitted. He'd gone the entire race on a set of hards, so he has until the very last lap to pit for his one mandatory tire change, in which he put on softs. So he hauls into the pit lane. Meanwhile, right at the pit lane entry, something like 20-something photographers are crossing the road right there. Some of them literally had to jump out of the way to miss this F1 car that travels at a minimum speed of somewhere between 50 and 80 miles an hour. Open wheel. That could have been an absolute disaster. What is the FIA doing? A, not having some kind of a spotter at the pit lane entry. If you're going to allow people to cross that trackway, that little roadway, mid-race, to go up along the gate, not mid-race, but during the race, the last lap is still part of the race. You still have cars legally allowed to come in. It's in the rule book. If you're going to let people go in, you need to have a spotter, or you need to not allow them to go back in there until the race is completely done and they can be sure that there's no cars coming in. Do you remember what happened? I think it was in kart in either the 80s or the 90s. Remember the kart series? When one of the track marshals got hit by an open wheel car? You know what happens when you get run over by an open wheel car? I wish we were able to ask that guy, but we can't because he's dead. That is what happens when you get hit by an open wheel car. They are high-powered machines. That was almost 20 people who got mowed down by this thing. And part of the reason I'm so fired up about it is because everybody made such a big stink about it, and rightfully so, when that tractor came onto the track last year in Suzuka. Remember what a giant storyline that was? Between the drivers, between, spectators, officials, the FIA, everybody. It was a giant, giant story because there was a tractor on track, and, no disrespect to Jules Bianchi, he passed away in that accident. But everybody's making this, or in the a previous accident, and that's why the tractor on track was a big deal. And everybody made a big deal about it being back on track last year. This needs to be made a bigger deal of because while, one driver at a time is being put at risk, all those photographers, 20 at a time, were put at risk. This would have been international headlines had he clipped any single one of them. And good on Esteban Ocon for being on his P's and Q's and letting off the gas, because had he looked down at his Delta in that moment, had he coughed, sneezed, or taken time to check out the sights, he could have knocked somebody's fucking foot off.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been as simple as the stewards just paying attention to the fact that Esteban hadn't pitted yet.
Yeah, so he's got to come in.
They know he's going to be coming in. They have to be just sending a signal down to security.
If they were just as much as watching the broadcast, they would have known that he still had to come in, because the broadcasters were making note of it. I was making note of it. You look at the TV graphic and you go, "Oh shit, Esteban Ocon, it's lap 50. He hasn't pitted yet. He's going to have to come in, or he's going to."
The security personnel setting up that rope across the way isn't paying attention to the race, so that's why it's on the stewards to make sure that they're doing
that was bonkers.
What they should be doing.
I'm glad it wasn't that nothing happened. Part of what really made me fired up about it was the fact that it was swept so much under the rug when other instances of the same caliber were made this giant deal. Other than that,
well, I don't know.
What?
I was going to say, maybe in this era of FIA management, they try to, be a little more hush-hush about their mistakes.
Oh, they do. They sweep that shit under the rug like the CIA. They're the mafia when it comes to not letting people know what they're up to. Other than that, boring race. Good on Checo. This sets us up for Miami. Let's get into 3 bold predictions before we wrap this up. Do you already have 3 ready to go? Because I don't.
No.
All right, let's go one at a time then. Are you jotting these down? I'll do one.
Sure.
I'm going to say Sergio Perez wins the Miami Grand Prix.
Okay. Sergio wins Miami Grand Prix.
Well, that's my first one. You got one ready to go?
I need to be a little more bold because of my, I got a lot of flack last week about my predictions, so
yeah, you gotta start taking risks.
I'm gonna say we're gonna see a new driver on the podium this weekend.
I like that. I thought you were gonna say that we were gonna see a new winner.
I'm not gonna be that bold.
Okay.
But Sergio wins. That would be great. I feel like Max is most poised. But
I'm gonna go with a top team, and I mean that we'll consider the top teams being the top 3 in the standings. So let's say that one of a Red Bull, an Aston Martin, or a Mercedes will DNF in the race.
Say that again.
One of the top teams, either a Red Bull. I'm saying the top teams, by that phrase, I mean the top three. So Red Bull, Aston Martin, Mercedes. I'm saying one of them will have one car DNF.
Okay.
So one of Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Stroll, Russell, or Hamilton will DNF in Miami.
Got it. I'm going to say Hamilton does better than Russell again.
Okay. For my final one, I'm going to involve George in this again. This is one that I've used before, and I'm going to recycle it. I'm going to say George will make contact with somebody. That's almost not even bold anymore.
Well, it's just going to be every week.
Yeah. If I hit on that one, hit on that one this week, then I'll have to put that one away and not be able to use it because that's going to be as common as Max getting on the podium.
Did you see him overtaking Stroll in the pit lane?
I didn't.
When the safety car went up, George passed Stroll in the pit lane. Like snuck ahead of him, like went up side by side and snuck ahead of him.
Oh shit! Was it like a dirty move or?
Yeah, it was just like a little sneaky, cheeky move on him. He had the space and he just went for it.
Interesting. Can't hate on him for that. So there we go. Do you have one more you have to make? New driver on the podium.
Yeah, let's see.
Hamilton. Yeah, you need to make one more bold prediction.
Bold. Okay, let's see. How bold? I want. It's gonna be about Logan. It's gonna be his home race, Florida boy.
I didn't even think about that.
I want to say it's gonna at least be his best finish of the year.
That's bold enough.
I feel like that's probably
he gets
that's good.
His top finish of the weekend or of the season.
Logan has best finish of season. Maybe not of. I mean, I guess it's hard to. Yeah.
Okie doke. Let's do one more thing.
Say it's not going to be the entire season, but of the
season so far. Speaking of the season so far, I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to start ranking races as we saw fit for the best races of the season. Azerbaijan for me immediately goes back to number 4. I'd say that has been the worst. I would go Bahrain at number 3, and then Jeddah at 2. And Australia, I think, so far has still been the best race of the season. Do you disagree?
No, I would agree wholeheartedly.
Alrighty, let's get into our fantasy recap. Coming out of this, I stretched you out a little bit. I gained a little bit on you.
Yeah, I was weary about the Haas's, so I needed to switch out Hulkenberg. Yeah. And it was like Albon, Joe, and I was even eyeing Yuki a little bit. I was like, I don't know, Yuki, he's been on a roll. He's got a vibe happening.
Yeah. I got lucky.
And I ended up picking Joe, and then that lost me.
Yeah, I dropped Joe last minute. I ended up dropping Guan Yu Zhou, and I took Alex Albon, kind of just on a hunch feeling. And it didn't pay out in dividends. I only got 2 points from it, but I would have lost a lot more. So fantasy recap is myself in first. You are in second. Susie Wolf Stand Account stays in third. Church of Czech Hose moves up to fourth. J Money moves up to fifth. Strolling with my homies down to sixth. Let's go full throttle. And KJ still in dead last. Anything else, Brandon?
I think that's it. Looking forward to Miami. It's going to be, hopefully weather's great. It'll be, great to see them come back stateside.
I'm excited to have them back.
A lot of celebrities there. It'll be funny to see if Shaq shows up again.
Shaq's been a mainstay at every U.S. operated race. He's kind of the face of F1 for the United States. Him and Brad Pitt, they're a little bit more of the face of American F1 than Logan Sargent, unfortunately. Either way, we will see you guys in Miami. Maybe we'll get together for a little bit of a Miami Grand Prix preview and see how we feel about that going into the weekend. This has been Into the Chicane. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.